6 days to New Center 7 First Edition at 5:30.
Now, live from the studios of 1290 WHIO, your chance to take part in the Miami Valley's only midday radio talk forum. 1290 WHIO and Television 7 proudly present this simulcast segment of the Mike Scinto Show.
In light of the fact that this is Labor Day week, and yesterday we actually celebrated labor and honored those working folks, we're talking about right to work. What exactly is right to work, and do we need Ohio to be a right-to-work state? Would you favor that kind of activity? We're finding out from the radio portion of the show, and our guest who will be joining us in just a couple of minutes from the Cox Bureau in Washington, D.C., who is with us right now, Reed Larson, that we need to work on this, Reed, from both the federal as well as the state level, do we not?
That's right.
In what respect?
Well, to begin with, the federal law favors compulsory unionism. It helps union officials coerce employees into unions, and that's designed to do that. The federal law was passed based on the idea that the union organizers needed help from the federal government to organize employees into unions, that it would be good for the public if employees were unionized. This is clear back in the Big Depression of the early 1930s. And so the law is written based on that idea. And in the process, lots of individual rights get trampled on. The employees' rights are really secondary to the union officials' privileges. And the union officials have all kinds of coercive privileges and legal immunities, which have led to many of the abuses of power that we're all concerned with today.
We touched on something, Reed, during the... And we're going to tell folks to get a pencil and paper out, because we'll be giving them a phone number in just a little while if they want more information about right to work, or they have a specific problem dealing with right to work or unions or their jobs. But we talked about something just a few minutes ago on the radio that I think is important to share with the television audience as well, and that is one of the biggest arguments against right to work is that if you come to my shop and I'm a union member at my shop and I pay my dues, and you come in there and it's a right to work state and you don't have to pay the dues or anything else, you're going to benefit from all the things that my union negotiated. Is that true or false?
Well, that's a matter of opinion. Lots of employees think that the union does them more harm than good, and that's why unions lose so many elections when employees have a chance to vote. But if the employees want a union, they should certainly be free to join and to be represented by the union. But we think absolutely that nobody should be represented by the union unless he or she wants to be and is willing to pay dues. We don't think the union should be required to represent anybody that doesn't pay them money.
But under federal law now they are.
Under federal law they are, and that's one of the many coercive privileges that union officials demanded in the law, and they keep it in the law. We're trying to get that out of the law. And I bet
you're getting a lot of support from Ohio Senator Metzenbaum, are you not?
Oh, he doesn't do anything that the AFL-CIO disagrees with. He gets his orders right straight from the union headquarters.
Are you a union buster? Are you anti-union?
Absolutely not. And there's no argument whatsoever that unions have to have compulsion in order to exist. If unions are so bad that they can only exist with this compulsion of employees, then they don't deserve to exist. But the record is very clear that many voluntary unions do quite well. Over the years, voluntary unions represent their members. They are required, just by the very nature of their voluntarism, to be sensitive to what their dues-paying members want. And that's the way a union should be. But once they can lock those people in and get an employer to say, I'll fire anybody that doesn't pay you money, then the union boss is on easy street. He doesn't have to worry about whether the union members like what he's doing or not.
How many right-to-work states are there right now?
There are 21 right-to-work states.
In the South and the West?
Mostly in the South and the West.
We're going to take a quick break. Reed Larson is with us, National Right to Work. We'll give you a phone number in just a little while that you can call and get more information or find out how you can get help. Here's a phone number for you for the show right now.
You can take part in the Mike Scinto Show by calling 457-1290 or toll-free anywhere in Ohio, 1-800-345-1290.
We have a telephone number for you that we promised for the National Right to Work Committee, 1-800-722-2510. That's 1-800-722-2510. Now, this is actually the legal foundation, and Reed, if they call this number, what are they going to get?
We can give them information about how they can assert their right not to have to pay the political support of union officials' activities. You see, for many years, union officials were able to get employees fired if they refused to pay money that went into political and ideological activities. And now we've got a Supreme Court decision that if employees will ask for relief and ask in the right way, they don't have to pay that money anymore. All they can be compelled to pay under the Supreme Court's new ruling is the actual cost of collective bargaining, nothing else. And that's what we can tell them at the Legal Defense Foundation if they'll call that number.
Are they still being compelled to do it, even though the Supreme Court decision came down?
Most employees don't even know about this because, of course, union officials don't tell them. They tell them exactly the opposite. Employers who have compulsory unionism contracts are afraid to upset their union, so they don't tell them. And the National Labor Relations Board, the tax-supported federal agency that's supposed to help administer the law, puts out false information. The information that they're disseminating, and we're challenging that very vigorously right now, is absolutely false, and so employees don't have any way to know about it. That's one of the reasons we started this educational campaign and set up these new 800 numbers, so we can help spread the word to employees that they don't any longer have to pay for the political adventures of top union officials in order to earn a living.
Reed Larson is with us from the National Right to Work Committee, and we say hello to Bert from West Dayton. Hi.
Hi there, how are you?
Doing fine, Bert. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good. I'm getting very concerned about people like this young man from Washington. I see they're helping people to destroy the union. And that's, to me, that's what that amounts to. Now, I'm 67 years old, so it's not going to affect me, but I'm thinking about the next generation. With all of the foreign countries like Germany, Japan, England, Australia taking over control of countries by financial means, how this is going to affect the worker down the road, and I don't think these people are looking down far enough to see what's going to happen to the American.
You're saying the only saving grace for the American worker is the union?
I'm saying that that's going to be well, what can we say, a deterrent to the
Bert, let me ask you this, okay? If you believe that as a worker, all right, then, and I'll see if Reed agrees with this. If you believe that truly in your heart that that's the saving grace of the American worker, and you want to belong to a union, Reed has no problem with that. But if I don't believe it and don't want to belong to a union, then I shouldn't have to. Reed, is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, and I believe what your caller is saying, that if we succeed in making unions voluntary rather than compulsory, that will destroy unions, and that's not true. And that's a terrible indictment of unions. If anybody really believes that unions can exist only by compelling people to pay money to them, then unions are in terrible shape, and they're not that bad. But the union officials have got to get their act together, and they've got to think about what is best for the members, and they will if we make unions voluntary.
Bert, thanks for calling. We say hello to Charles from Huber Heights. You're on with Reed Larson on the Mike Scinto Show on WHIO Radio and Television 7.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I lived out in California. I worked for Douglas Aircraft.
Let me get you to speak up just a little for us, if you could, Charles, please.
Okay. 1959, I worked for Douglas Aircraft. We had the right to work out there, and I personally witnessed 2 or 3 times a week fist fights because of the right to work. I also worked in a non-union shop, and I lost my job to the foreman's nephew that needed a job for the summer. So where does that leave you?
Well,
how would you like to work?
You ready for my comment? Number one, unfortunately, California has never had a right to work law. Compulsory unionism is the rule in California, and Douglas Aircraft fires people who don't pay dues to the union. So this is not a right-to-work situation at all. I don't know what caused the fistfights, but certainly it wasn't right to work, because there is no right-to-work law in California.
All right. Charles, thanks for calling. We say hello to Bill from North Dayton. You're on the Mike Scinto Show with Reed Larson. Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
My question is, who funds the National Right to Work Committee? Where does their money come from?
Well, the money comes from voluntary contributions from all kinds of people, including a lot of union members. We have union members in our leadership on the National Right to Work Committee's board of directors. A third of the board is made up of wage earners, some of whom are current union members, many of whom are former union members. The support comes from all kinds of Americans all the way across the board. Most of it is in fairly small contributions. The average is about $30. And we exist, unlike union officials, we can't compel anybody to pay. We can only exist as long as Americans are willing to contribute voluntarily to help win the freedom of America's working people.
Okay, thanks for calling. And when we come back, we have received a phone call, and we will be going to the executive director of the regional office of the AFL-CIO, Wes Wells, to talk to Reed Larson as the Mike Scinto Show continues, coming to you live from the studios of 1290 WHIO Radio and the facilities of Television 7.
Get ready, Television 7. Here come the 90s. Are you ready today? It's a whole new game. Are you ready to play? New Center 7 is coming like a runaway express. So come on and get ready. Get ready. Get ready, Television 7.
Reed Larson, National Right to Work, is with us from our Cox Bureau in Washington, D.C. In just a little while, we'll give you a phone number again if you want to talk to their legal foundation. But first, we got a phone call from a friend of ours in this area, the regional office, or the executive director of the regional office of the AFL-CIO, Wes Wells. Good morning, Wes. How are you?
Morning, Mike.
You wanted to talk to Reed.
Yeah, Mike, a few points I think we should make. Number one, Reed knows very well that our PACs are voluntary. Our people make voluntary contributions. They're not required to make contributions. It's voluntary, the same as the company PACs. The other thing, does Mr. Larson think that the company should have PACs and unions should not have PACs in order to progress legislation that we have in Washington? The other point I'd like to make is take a look at the Ohio workforce and the picture that came out in the paper this morning. The Ohio's workforce grows, unemployment rates fall. This has been done specifically because of labor management councils that have been instituted in the state of Ohio. Labor and management working together when we talk about the global marketplace. Our people in this area doesn't need outsiders to tell us how to run our business. I think number one, and my point is, does the companies have PACs, and are they voluntary, the same as the union PACs are voluntary?
Okay, Reed, you want to tackle those?
Yes, that's a very important point to clarify. He's talking about what the politicians call hard money. That's the cash, the reported cash that union officials or other interest groups pass out to candidates. And unions last election cycle gave a little over $35 million in hard cash to their hand-selected political candidates. But that's not the source of the problem. The real problem is the in-kind political support, that staff salaries, phone banks, the cost of raising that hard money. This is called soft money, and the soft money comes right out of the paycheck of compulsory dues of individual workers who may or may not agree with the candidates that it gets spent on. That goes into the very selective get out the vote campaigns, the registration campaigns, the carpools, phone banks, printing, union staff time. It amounts to 10 times, at least as much as 10 times, the measly $35 million hard cash that they gave to candidates. Now that's all reported. That's out in the open.
Mr. Larson, tell us
that's not the problem.
Reed, hang on just a second. No, Wes, go ahead.
Mr. Larson, tell us exactly how much the company PACs put into the last election. And the Right to Work Committee, how much they put into supporting their candidates and how much in-kind contributions.
Well, the right to work committee doesn't even have a PAC, and
Tell me how much
if it did, it would have to be entirely voluntary.
Do companies have PACs, Reed?
Oh, absolutely, and I think most of them are abominable. They support the same candidates in many cases that the union officials support. This is not an issue between companies and working people. This is an issue between union officials and the rights of laboring people. What the corporations do may or may not be right, and it doesn't have any bearing on this at all. I think they do an abominable job.
Okay, Reed, Wes, go ahead.
I don't think we should leave the general public with the opinion, Reed, number one, that our PACs are not voluntary. Each Coke dollar that we raise is voluntary, and you know that, yet you're telling the public that they're required to make contributions.
Absolutely, I'm not. $35 million in cash can be traced ostensibly to the voluntary, we'll put that in quotes, contributions of union members. The cost of raising that, which might in itself be as much as the $35 million itself, comes right out of compulsory union dues and all of the other political activities, the in-kind political activities, soft money. This is called by the politicians soft money as distinguished from hard money. The hard money is reported.
You still have not answered my question. How much did company PACs contribute in the last election? And you have those figures, Reed.
Well, I imagine it was probably in the same range as the union PAC.
What he's telling us, Wes, I don't know whether you buy it or others buy it or not, is he's saying that the company, he's admitting the company PACs probably have contributed as much or maybe even more, but he's saying he doesn't like that either.
That doesn't have anything to do with the issue here.
Well, yes, it does have something to
Companies aren't right. I'm not defending companies. I think they are doing a terrible job with their PACs and their political activities.
Well, I think one of the things that we've done in this region, Mike, and you're very much aware of that, through the Lieutenant Governor's office, we tried to introduce an amendment to the Ohio Constitution limiting how much PACs could spend on candidates.
Sure, we've tried that before too, and so I will say that, Reed, that Ohio is very progressive in that area, and the unions in Ohio are very progressive in that area.
Well, I certainly hope that they are, and the more they are based on voluntary membership, the more responsible they'll be.
Okay, Wes, let me ask you something. Getting away from the political end of it for just a second before we take a break, do you think it's fair that if I come to work for Chrysler or for General Motors, that if I don't want to belong to a union, that I should have to be represented by that union?
Oh, absolutely. When we take a look at the average wage rates of those right to work states, and take a look at the wage rates in this state, for example, and take a look at the tax structure and who pays the taxes, we don't think that there should be free riders. If an individual enjoys the same wage and benefits, health, medical, and all those services, then we don't think that they should be able to free ride on other members that pay union dues.
Reed?
Well, I don't think they should be able to free ride either, and I don't think that you should be required to represent anybody who doesn't voluntarily join and pay dues to the union. Well, now, just tell us right on the air, do you want to represent those non-members? Would you support a change in the law that says you represent only the people that want to be represented?
Reed, you know that by federal law that we're required to represent those free riders.
And he's saying he wants that changed.
We've got a bill in Congress to change that. Would you support it?
Would you support the bill to eliminate that federal law? Wes?
Take a look at the bill. I don't even know what bill he's talking about.
Okay, let me ask you, Wes, if we came up with a theoretical bill or an actual bill that would eliminate the mandatory support for people who didn't pay their dues and didn't belong to the union, could you at least be open to the consideration of right to work law?
Well, I think we have to take a look at any legislation, but to buy a pig in a poke, absolutely not. And the things that Reed and the Right to Work Committee stand for, we're directly opposed to those principles.
All right.
And Reed, you know, he's very much aware of that.
Just remember this. Unions want to represent those non-members, and they fight bitterly for the right and the privilege of doing that.
I've got a break.
Those people.
Wes, thanks for calling in.
You're welcome.
I've got a break. Reed Larson is with us from our Cox Bureau in Washington, D.C. This is the Mike Scinto Show, coming to you live from the studios of 1290 WHIO Radio and the facilities of Television 7. Phone number for the National Right to Work Committee is 1-800-722-2510. 1-800-722-2510. That's for the Legal Foundation if you have questions or are having a problem about making political contributions. We just have a couple of very short minutes left with our guest, Reed Larson from National Right to Work, and we go to the phones and say hello to Mac from Xenia. Mac, yeah, you had a real quick question or comment for us.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why, you know, if you file charges, you're paying the union dues. If you file charges through the union, and the union steward and management get together and, you know, ask me to drop my charges because the other people are going to file charges on me, should I have to pay union dues? And I feel that I was misrepresented.
Reed, you want to?
Well, now, of course, I don't know the circumstances he describes, but there's a point of view there of a compulsory union member who feels that the union is not representing his interest, and he certainly should have the right to withdraw his support from the union. And if he had that right, you can be sure that union's going to be a lot more careful about being sure that he is represented in the way that he feels he should be.
All right, Wendell, you had a real quick question for us from East Dayton.
Well, I just wanted to know, I've been in several unions, especially back in California.
We've just got a little less than a minute left, so real quickly, what's your question?
Well, I just want to know, do they know that most of the officials are not affiliated with that business?
Most officials are not affiliated with what business?
Well, like I was back in the California lumber business, there was a lot of them were not affiliated.
So I think what he's saying is the union membership is not necessarily affiliated with the company that is being represented. The employees are represented. We don't really have time for response. We'll leave it at that. Reed, we're almost out of time.
Well,
thanks so much. What were you going to say? 5 seconds.
Thanks for being on your show. Good unions don't need compulsory unionism, and bad unions don't deserve it.
All right. Reed Larson, thank you very much, and I'm sure you'll be getting some phone calls on that toll-free number that has been established to answer questions about compulsory unionism and where it's going from here. We'll be back tomorrow. I want you to do me a favor. Go out there and make it a very, very safe day.
This simulcast segment of the Mike Scinto Show was a presentation of 1290 WHIO Radio and Television 7. Join us tomorrow morning for another exciting guest and conversation. The Mike Scinto Show can be heard weekdays from 9 till 1 on AM 1290 WHIO.